Okay, I've heard all of your requests, and since the Gachiakuta anime has just dropped, I thought it would be best to get the jump on Urana K. I feel as if she's popping off everywhere. I've been seeing video essays about her and her artwork on Gachiakuta, and I also want a piece of that pie. Therefore, welcome to this video. I feel like the last time people were this hype about a manga was Kagurabachi. I remember people would post splash pages from that manga like crazy all over Twitter. And yes, I do plan on looking at that artist as soon as I get caught up to date with that. I also need to finish the video for the artist for solo leveling, but that's neither here nor there. Besides, I think this takes priority over all of that. Gachiakuta's style and aesthetic has been talked about endlessly all over the internet, and for very good reason. I can flip to literally any chapter of this manga and be absolutely blown away by the artwork. But before looking more into the art, let's talk a bit more about Urana K. Urana K, also known as Kanaru, which is technically her name backwards, is a Japanese manga artist and illustrator who first gained attention after her one-shot Shikudo won the Shonen Magazine Newcomer Award in 2019. Prior to that, however, she did work on a one-shot called Nokosei in 2018, and in 2022, she finally serialized Gachiakuta, a gritty dystopian manga that's already made waves for its originality and powerful artwork. Having previously worked under Atsushi Okubo during his run for Fire Force, you could see a lot of influences from him in her art style. And if you want to see what I thought about his artwork, you can check out the video in the top right corner. However, do not be mistaken, she is more than someone that has taken inspiration from her mentor. She has developed her own style that absolutely separates her from other manga artists out there. With that being said, I'll be looking at her inked work and her colored work while dissecting things to find cool about her art style. One of the first things you'll notice in Urana's pages is her energetic line work. Her inking style is bold with intentional shifts of line weight that create an organic sense of movement. She uses speed lines, rough hatching, and brushstrokes not just to fill in space, but to emphasize the tension or chaos in the scene. And this is especially apparent during action scenes where her line work almost feels like it's vibrating with energy and flows with so much fluidity. This splash page is a good example in which the flow of action in the composition is so clear with Rudo and Tamsi's vital instruments. And to be fair, all of Urana's splash pages are dynamic, whether it's an explosion or a cool power pose. That dynamic energy also extends to fight scenes, like the fight scene between Ryu and Nerude. You can see how she flows the movements of the characters into the next attack and you don't get lost in the action at all. That flow of energy is also extended to the paneling. For example, on this page where the trash beast shoots a beam, the panel itself is curving outward as if the beam is distorting the page layout itself. That and the beam going straight out of the page gives it so much more power and emphasis. And on the topic of panel use, Urana has moments where she tears washi paper and uses it as a form of paneling, sort of like collage. This video interview shows a lot of her process in which I'll use to extrapolate guesses in how she makes her artwork, so you'll see me come back to this video pretty often. This way of paneling is mainly used to express flashbacks, but on top of that, she will sometimes render those moments in just pencil to give the vibe of a core memory long since past. It's like a vibe of a hazy or fuzzy memory, in which graphite is very useful to convey as opposed to pen and ink. There is also this one time where she drew in a very childlike manner to have the reader being Amo, the character in question's, point of view. This contrast is done so well to express something so sinister and unsettling while being in a child's perspective. She could also push the paneling and rendering style to be very rough and sketchy to express how dire the situation was when Rudo saw his ally getting stabbed and how it reminded him of how his father died. All of this is a testament to Urana's skill in the traditional medium by using different means of rendering to convey different emotions. And speaking of emotions, the way she draws facial expressions in those moments is prevalent in Urana's storytelling. Her characters frequently display exaggerated facial expressions, think bulging eyes, stretched mouths, and intense teeth gritting. These elements, which border on caricature, allow her to dial the emotional tone of a scene way up there. Like this scene where Rudo's having tea for the first time and he makes this bitter face, or this scene where Rudo is desperate for more information, or the times where he attempts to have a genuine smile despite how creepy it comes off, or literally every single scene in which Rudo is pissed off for whatever reason. And I cannot help but love the way Urana depicts his rage. It can be drawn in very serious ways or in more exaggerated ways like this. You can just feel the brush pen on the page she used to ink this scene. Another character, Jabber, also has moments of extreme emotion that perfectly conveys how psychotic he is. But going back to how she depicts rage, I think the most defining way she expresses that is through high contrast. There are times where she'll have most of the character's face be obscured by nothing but black, with only the eyes fully conveying how angry the character is. Alternatively, there are cases where she uses that high contrast to show a more quiet rage, as evident in characters like Zodil. His eyes are dark and empty, but strangely holds a lot of power and focus, which is more than likely has something to do with his backstory that I'm looking forward to getting to know along with other characters like Engine. And on the topic of characters, the cast of Gachiakuta has lots of layered outfits inspired by graffiti artists, punk subcultures, and dystopian utility fashion. We're talking about things like logos, patches, belts, rip fabrics, asymmetric designs, and all of that are common. These choices reinforce the story's theme, discarded people surviving in a world built from trash. Let's look at the Raiders for example. Most if not all the members will be wearing something that has a diamond patterned leather fabric patched or sewn on top of other parts of clothing. Not only does this design choice unify them as a unit, but it cohesively shows the viewers that this is a world in which everything, down to the clothing, is something that was once regarded as trash and useless, but is repurposed into something usable, which is sort of the whole point of the power system, and particularly Rudo's ability to weaponize garbage. And if you look at the cleaners, or the janitors depending on how you want to call them, you can also notice that there's a unifying element in all their designs. But when they aren't wearing their uniforms, you can see that there's still a level of stylistic fashion that Urana incorporates, whether it's their casual wear or when they have to dress up like during the doll festival. I also want to quickly talk about the characters' proportions. It goes without saying that an anime art style is not limited to anatomical accuracy, but you could definitely see certain stylistic intricacies in the way the arms and legs are drawn. They are very long and lanky, and the shape of them can be very exaggerated in certain cases, but it works so well. Again, it gives every character a dynamic energy, and I just love the way she draws hands. They are very expressive, and in Rudo's case, despite him wearing gloves, Orana does a really good job in drawing the slight curves and folds in the gloves, while being mindful of how they would look foreshortened as well. Also, look at the way she draws the character's hair. Usually I would compare drawing and rendering hair like a ribbon, but the way Orana draws hair is more similar to, I guess, feathers? Especially with how she seems to be using a brush pen to ink the tips of Rudo's hair. She doesn't really draw hair sharp and pointed, rather all the hair she draws have rounded edges. However, with that, she pulls off very dynamic and angular shapes using the hair, like in this shot. This all helps with making the character designs pop. And in addition to that, a character design motif that I love to see in manga, anime, or video games are masks. You've probably seen in Persona 5, Dorohedoro, Tokyo Ghoul, and probably lots of other things like Bleach. Well, Urana also utilizes this motif and she incorporates it very well. Not only do the masks mesh really well with each individual character's personality and design, it also makes sense to the context of the setting. Due to being a literal world of garbage, the air is toxic in certain areas due to the pollution. Therefore, the characters need masks to breathe. And since the designs of the masks are so distinct, you are not going to mistake who any of these characters are. I will have to say that these designs are also very reflective of Urana herself. Never before have I seen an artist look so much like the work they produce. Like, she literally looks like she could be one of her own characters in Gachiakuta, down to even her clothing. And more than anything, I think it's because she seems like she has a lot of personality. I don't know her personally or anything like that because I'm not parasocial, but it looks like she channels all of that personality into her work. And it's not just her character designs, even her backgrounds and textures pull from graffiti art and street visuals, giving every location a lot of personality. Gachiakuta's central idea is a society built on trash, and that idea bleeds into every corner of her paneling. Backgrounds are cluttered with discarded electronics, wires, metal shards, broken machinery, and rust-stained walls. The level of detail is impressive but never disorienting. Urana uses these visual elements to support the themes of class divide, decay, and survival. This world building through environmental texture actually gives the world a sort of realism. You can feel the grip between your fingers, and it's honestly how I felt with the art for Dorohedoro. All the locations in that manga felt straight up dirty, but that is exactly the point per se. I live in the new city of York, so when I see graffiti in the backgrounds, I will admit it feels very familiar. And for those that don't know, the modern graffiti style has been heavily influenced by hip-hop culture, which started in New York and Philadelphia during the 1960s and 70s. People started with putting up tags, then later artists began to paint throw-ups and pieces by train stations and on the subways themselves, and then all over the city. Trust me when I say, once you get to certain parts of Brooklyn and the Bronx, you can't go anywhere without seeing some graffiti. And while this video is mainly talking about Urana, I can't really continue to talk about the graffiti and how it helps contextualize the setting and the characters without mentioning Ando Hideyoshi, the artist responsible for all the graffiti in Gachiakuta. Now, does anybody know Jet Grind Radio? If not, here's a more modern example. Does anybody know Bomb Rush Cyberpunk? Well, those games just sort of remind me of the punk urban feeling that Gachiakuta gives off. just not as focused on the trash and garbage, I guess. The World Ends With You is another game that also gives off similar vibes. And something that's proliferated about those games is its graffiti, and I will say that while this type of art form is usually considered to be degenerate in some ways, especially in the way that people usually view graffiti as a form of vandalism, however, as an artist myself, I will say that there is still a lot of value in this form of self-expression. You can see in certain pages that there will be splashes of graffiti plastered all over the place, and that's what sort of makes these locations feel very real and inhabited. Just think about the bathroom graffiti in your local public restaurant and you'll see a lot of similarities. But without a doubt, the culmination of all of this is when the main cast of characters enter Canvas Town, to where even the sign you see when entering is plastered with graffiti. And I love this page where you see two people working on a mural. The way Orana draws the shaking motion you do for the spray can to use it on the wall is just masterful. And again, shout out to Anda Hideyoshi because this is honestly a very cool design. From what I could gather by looking at her social media as well as deeply looking at certain illustrations, I'm going to assume she mainly colors digitally. And in the video interview I mentioned earlier, you can see that both Urana and Hideyoshi agree that the traditional medium feels the best for them. However, they do dip their hands with the digital medium as well. And just like how their inked work accentuates an urban and hip-hop vibe, her color work follows the same beats. In some of her work, you can see heavy use of texture in the way she renders. Looking closer, one can say that it's a bit messy, but it's a style that I personally resonate with a lot. That messiness shines in depicting things like smeared makeup in this illustration. Also, this eye is barely even rendered, but it conveys a very glazed over look that feels very intentional to the expression that Orana is trying to show. But she can also really tighten up the rendering, for example, in her volume covers. It's very clean, and if you zoom in, you'll see very subtle marks and brush strokes that all come together when you zoom out. You'll also see very interesting patterns on the inside parts of the clothing that adds another layer of flair to her artwork. These patterns also appear with her inked work as well. She's also very good at painting without the use of lines. The folds on the clothing and some of her illustrations are painted solely using soft and hard edges. And once again, I personally think her colored work is at its best when it incorporates aspects of graffiti. Bold lines, the flat color, and the grunge texture all put together gives that spray painted feeling to it. And if you add in a bit of shape design and some angularity, you get some pieces that look as if they were painted with stencils. And this one illustration here encapsulates everything about the overall aesthetic of Gachiakuta. In fact, have you guys seen the way the anime adaptation has been marketed? Huge graffiti murals in different cities all over the world. It's advertisement in the style that is cohesive with the graffiti motif. And I know this isn't technically her work, but I just had to show appreciation for how her art and style is being proliferated. I guess to wrap this all up in a nice bow, Urana is without a doubt a trendsetter when it comes to the shonen landscape. If it wasn't already painfully obvious, Gachiakuta is going to be the next biggest thing in the anime community, and I've already seen a plethora of videos talking about her art style within the art community as well. When it comes to graffiti and the urban aesthetic incorporated in manga, I do think you can find something slightly similar in Air Gear, however it's not as nearly as prevalent as it is in Gachiakuta. If you like her work and you want to show her some support, follow her Twitter and follow her Instagram. The frequency and style in which she posts makes her feel very human. The way she vocalizes her opinions to haters, as well as how she expresses her excitement to the Gachiakuta's anime adaptation, is so full of life, it's actually contagious. Just look at the reaction gif she posted for the marketing for Gachiakuta. It's like she's an actual person. You can also buy the Gachiakuta manga if you want to support her, and I honestly can imagine sometime in the future that we are definitely going to get an art book from her, and when that time comes, you guys already know that I'm going to get my hands on it. I'm all caught up to the latest chapter of Gachiakuta, so I'm going to be very curious to see how the anime adaptation holds to our artwork. What is up, YouTube? It is me at the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching if you got up to this point. I know I made no announcement of me doing this video on Urana. I sort of wanted to keep it a surprise. But yeah, I've been keeping up with Gachiakuta literally within like the first few chapters when it first came out. And from there, I was hooked. The art was captivating, the power system, the setting, everything about this has kept me hooked into the manga as it was coming out. And I guess the reason why, despite people asking me to look at her work sooner, it's because the anime was coming out, and I knew that the closer the anime came, there'd be more promotion, more artwork to pull from, more information, and probably an interview, which lo and behold, interviews of her did come out, especially with more insights of her artwork too. So I was sort of waiting for all of that to come to a climax so I could really pull from those pieces of information to make this video. I will say Orana K, she's a very real person to me. I don't know how else to describe it, but when I see the poses she posts of her with her fans, her like having fun, or her taking pictures with literally anyone, it seems like she's having fun, and that's very different from what I see from other manga artists that seem to be like constantly in the hospital or constantly like in pain. I don't know. She seems to have really enjoyed doing what she does, and that's honestly a breath of fresh air. She is also very active on the internet, that I find. It's pretty amazing that she has time to do a weekly manga while posting as frequently as she does on the internet. But yeah, I really actually do like that about her. So yeah, that's the video. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, please like the video. Comment. I read the comments. I've been seeing so many comments of telling me to look at this artist, and now I finally have. So I hope that guy, that for the people that wanted to see this video, I hope you guys are satisfied with what I came out. Subscribing is cool. I like to see the number go up. So if you want to, show support, please do that. Alternatively, you could go on my description and follow me on my social media outlets, my Twitter, my Twitch, Instagram, Patron. If you want to send some money, you could either pick a tier and send me $1, $5, or $10, or you could be a free member. Either or is fine. I'm just really glad for your support. And yeah, that's it. That's the video. Thank you again so much for all the people that come to this point of the video. I know it's just literally just me like rambling. This is not scripted. This is really just like last minute updates and so on and so forth. But yeah, thank you guys anyway for getting to this point. Art videos are coming back. I'm going to do a lot more art videos since I've been doing a lot more art lately, and I need to upload it and show you guys. But yeah, again, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.